wearing the proper protective equipment. This would always include safety glasses, long sleeves, and gloves, and may include other protective items. And they have the right to expect you to select the right tool for the job. Many accidents have occurred when the person did not take time to get the right tool needed for the job. Selecting the right tool includes the right size as well as the right type. Using a small tool to do a big job is setting the stage for an accident. It is just as unsafe to use a large tool for a small job. So always size your tool to the job. Hand tools also have the right to be used correctly. A hammer should never be used on any wrench except a strike wrench like this one. Pliers are for stripping, cutting, and bending jobs. They should not be used to turn nuts or bolts. With the choices of tools available, it is important to choose tools properly. Use them only on the kinds of jobs they are designed for. Keep tools in the right place. Then you will have them when you need them. Leaving tools out around a job can make an unsafe condition. If you put tools in the right place when you finish with them, no one can trip on them and cause an injury. This module will emphasize safety consideration in the use of familiar hand tools such as hand wrenches, socket wrenches, punches and chisels, hammers and mauls, and screwdrivers. The box ends of these wrenches are valuable hand tools. They should be your first choice for turning stubborn nuts or bolts. They are safer to use because they enclose the nut and are not likely to slip. There are safety considerations you should always think about in using the box end of these wrenches. Select the size wrench to fit the nut or bolt snugly, and place the wrench all the way down on the nut before applying force. Simple instructions, you may say, but let me remind you that improper fit or wrench placement has caused many accidents. Take a position so that the wrench cannot strike your head or body even if it slips. Be sure your footing is secure. Then grip the wrench near the end and pull. If the nut does not loosen, even after lubricating it, do not get a cheater. They are unsafe because they may cause the wrench to bend or break. Instead, change tools to a longer handle wrench or a different type tool, such as an impact gun or strike wrench. Strike wrenches are for heavy-duty work, such as freeing frozen nuts. There are some safety tips to remember in using them. Select the proper size strike wrench for the job. Do not use strike wrenches with mushroom striking surfaces. Either repair it or replace it. Hold the strike face wrench on the nut with the palm of your hand when striking it with a hammer. Position yourself so you do not swing the hammer down across your arm holding the wrench. If two people are doing the job, the person holding the wrench should keep one hand free and keep his head and body away from the wrench. His buddy using the maul should stand as nearly in line with the wrench as possible. The person using a maul should position his hands so the maul will strike the wrench full face on the strike face of the wrench. Remember, if the job requires raising the maul higher than your vision span, you should get a larger maul rather than swing the maul over your head. The open-end portion of these combination wrenches are a common tool for a variety of jobs. They are made for adjusting check nuts, some structural steel jobs, removing nuts with limited space at the end of a bolt, and for speed in removing loosened nuts. But they have limitations. Do not use an open-end wrench to free a frozen nut or for final tightening of a nut. The wrench jaws may spread and slip on the nut if the wrench is overloaded. And never use a hammer on an open-end wrench. Open-end wrenches are great when used properly. Be sure the wrench fits snugly, is fully seated on the nut without cocking or tilting the jaws, and the wrench will do a good job for you. Adjustable wrenches are similar to open-end wrenches, except one jaw is movable. They should be used only when the proper size open-end or socket wrenches are not available. Adjustable wrenches are not intended for hard service. Treat them gently and use them only as a second choice wrench for the job. When you do use an adjustable wrench, there are two important points to remember about their proper use. First, always place the wrench on the nut so the pulling force is applied on the stationary jaw side of the handle. Secondly, after putting the wrench on the nut, tighten the wrench adjustment so the wrench fits snugly. Pipe wrenches are made for holding and turning pipe fittings, where tooth marks are not objectionable. They should never be used on nuts and bolts or polished surfaces such as pump shafts. Always remember that a pipe wrench can crush thin wall pipe or tubing. When placing a pipe wrench on pipe, leave a gap between the pipe and back of the wrench. Pick the size wrench you need for the job. Never use a cheater bar or hammer on a pipe wrench. Before pulling on a pipe wrench, make certain the wrench has a firm hold on the pipe and arrange yourself in a secure and comfortable position. Pipe wrenches are for turning and holding. Do not use them for lifting or bending by exerting force to the side of the wrench jaws. Socket wrenches are versatile tools found in most toolboxes. Power drives are used with impact sockets for many jobs, and the safe use of power drives will be dealt with in other modules. In this module, we will only highlight safety considerations in the selection and use of sockets. Notice the difference in the wall thickness of these sockets. The thin one, which is chrome-plated, is for hand-powered tools. The black metal thick-walled one is for an impact power drive. Don't use sockets designed for hand tools on impact wrenches. They are not designed to take the impact and may break and cause an injury. Also, it is unsafe to use hand sockets on impact wrenches because they are not equipped with the proper retaining device. Impact wrench sockets feature a hole and groove for a pin and ring or some other special retaining device which is essential for their safe use. Let me remind you of 3 safety precautions in the use of chisels and punches. First, wear adequate eye protection to protect from possible flying fragments of metal. Second, maintain and use chisels that are free of mushroomed heads or chipped cutting edges. Striking a chisel with a mushroomed head is asking for trouble. Third, hold a punch or chisel so your hand is protected. Note how the chisel is held by this mechanic. That is the safest way to hold a chisel or punch with your hand when you strike it with a hammer. An alternate way is to use a chisel holder like this one. Here you do not have your hand on the chisel and get maximum protection for your hand. Remember, a screwdriver is not to be used as a chisel. Screwdrivers are for inserting and removing screws. Do not try to use them for a cutting tool by hammering on them. And screwdrivers should not be used as pry bars. The blade design and heat treatment were not intended for that use. There are many sizes and shapes of screwdrivers. Here are some safety tips for using them correctly. Select the proper size screwdriver to fit the head of the screw snugly. Keep your screwdriver tips dressed so they are square and smooth on the tip. Do not hold the piece in your hand where you are inserting or removing a screw. Use a vise or secure the part on a flat surface. Guide a screwdriver by holding the lower end of the shank. Any attempt to hold the screw with your hand is setting the stage for an injury to your hand. Use a screw starter to hold the screw when needed. If you need extra turning power, pick a screwdriver with a square shank or hexagonal bolster near the handle and supply extra turning power with a wrench. Do not use pliers on the shank of a screwdriver. And one other safety tip, do not use a screwdriver with a deformed tip or cracked handle. Either repair it or discard it. Hammers and mauls can be big helpers when used properly. Your first responsibility in using a hammer or maul is to select the right size and kind for the job. Consider the weight and handle length needed for your job. To Do not use a claw hammer for striking a chisel or punch, and be sure the strike face on the hammer or maul is larger than the object you will strike. Examine the handle for tightness and greasy or slippery places. Also check the strike face for distortion or chips. Do not use a hammer or maul with any of these defects. Position yourself so that the hammer will hit the object squarely. Swing a hammer or maul in the same vertical plane as the object you are striking. Check the swing path for adequate clearance and strike 1 or 2 light blows. Then increase your blows as required. To use a maul requiring both hands, grasp the handle near the end with one hand and place the other hand at least halfway down the handle. Swing the maul in a single vertical plane. If that doesn't do the job, change mauls. Do not make a circular swing. Many injuries can be avoided if you always use the right tool in the right way. Sometimes it may be necessary to apply force on a wrench by pushing, but do this only when there is no other practical way, and do so only after you carefully brace against a sudden release or slippage. Remember, you are the only member of this team who has brains. Use them to stay in complete control of your hand tools, and you can have a long, happy, and productive relationship with them.